Alright guys, in this video, we're going to be talking about the Paris Eternal and the Atlanta Reign. We saw them face off this weekend, and it was a match that a lot of people had the Atlanta Reign with the upper hand because we haven't seen a lot of the Atlanta Reign. The only thing we've seen is them play against the Toronto Defiant, and they pretty much dismantled them. So a lot of people had hype coming into this match that Atlanta Reign was going to play well in the mirror matchup versus Paris, but up until this point, we hadn't seen Atlanta play the meta of the McCree, the May, the Ryan, the Diva. So this was the first time we saw them face off, and it was always going to be a hard match for Atlanta because Paris have looked like one of the best teams in this current sort of meta. Paris have been playing the Ryan Diva ever since Hanbin came of age, and he's been playing the Diva, and he's been so good. He's so aggressive, getting so much value. He seems to always be trading effectively, and it's just been really sort of clicking for the Paris Eternal. So coming into this match, Paris won 3-1, but I think the scoreline sort of makes it seem like Atlanta was closer than they actually were. I don't actually think this was that close of a match. Atlanta did win Hanamura, but that was just 2CP being 2CP things. I think, Paris should have full capped the last point. They got to 99%, and then Erster comes out after his second death of respawning while Paris is on the point, and then 3 clips, 3 different players. So it's just sort of unfortunate that Paris never managed to close it out. They were actually almost about to hold the Atlanta Reign on Paris's defense as well, but Erster had some ridiculous play where he sort of split off from the high ground, throws the May ult against the Nano High Noon, manages to freeze him, isolate him, kill him, provides so much value in space, and that's just sort of attributes how much value Erster provides to this Atlanta Reign team on offense and defense, made clutch plays that ended up pulling them over the line. So I don't think you can give too much of praise to the Atlanta Reign for winning that map, but I kind of want to dissect why I think this was sort of a telling sign for the Atlanta Reign and sort of promising signs for the Paris Eternal. So let's start with the Paris Eternal. They've come in ever since Hanbin's come of age. They have XZ coming into the roster as well, and they've been so good. XZ just seems to click heads better than almost anyone else in the league. We have Hanbin playing super aggressive with FD God. We see it time and time again, them sort of comboing up and going aggressive against people. There was a really sick play by Hanbin and FD God that you can see here of they're booping Dogman out of the teleporter and isolating him and killing him before anything can happen. And this happened time and time again throughout the series. And you really got to give praise to this team for sort of forcing the opposition team to play in a different style and in a different way than they want to play. And that's the value that you see coming from the Paris Eternal. Obviously, they have Bembest on the Reinhardt, probably his most comfortable hero. Hit's been playing incredibly well. He had a couple of really clutch moments with sleeps and nades. So you got to give them praise where it's due. They're definitely very solid in this meta. But the thing I sort of want to underline when I think of these both teams is how are they going to be affected going into hero pools. So we already see coming into this weekend that we're going to have McCree, Widow, Moira, and Reinhardt banned. And this is a big effect for the Paris Eternal because we have Bembest, who I think his best character is probably the Reinhardt. Winston has never really been very impressive to anybody. We have XZ coming in, who's only pretty much played McCree and Widow. He's played a little bit of Symmetra, but he's pretty much only played those 3 characters since he's joined the league. So what is his Hanzo like? What is his Tracer like? These are questions that are going to need to be answered. And if they aren't that good, are we going to see soon come into the lineup? And then, how is this going to affect this team? They still have Hanbin being able to play the Diva, which I think has probably been the biggest strength of this Paris Eternal roster. Depending on where this meta goes, is it going to go Sombra Doomfist? Are we going to see Nico play the Doomfist? Kind of unimpressive on the King's Row map that they did win. He got some value, but nothing crazy. XE moving on to different characters. So I want to see how this affects the Paris Eternal team because they do look like, I would say, around a top 6 team playing this current May McCree meta. But I think this is almost the perfect concoction of meta for the Paris Eternal. And is this going to be able to follow through into hero pools? Also, how much attribute can you give to the coaching staff of the Paris Eternal? They have 9K, they have Rush, two incredibly accredited coaches throughout Overwatch in the past. So we had Rush coming from Element Mystic, and we had 9K coming from the San Francisco Shock. So these are a lot of great pieces that are helping a lot of players that we didn't really expect a lot from. So that sort of goes to show, is the value of coaching coming out in this Paris Eternal roster. So I'm really excited to see how they do moving forward, because they do have good talent, especially seeing of all this young talent that we have seen come in for them. They do have Sparkle coming in on May 30th. So I had this team incredibly low, but I think you can't really make an argument for them not to be top 10. But this could all go up in the air when we see Hero Pools come in. On the other side of the coin, we have the Atlanta Reign team. They played against Toronto Defiant in the first match of the weekend, and they just destroyed them, playing the double main tank, playing the Torbjorn, and it just didn't look close. And everyone was sort of like, this is the Atlanta Reign we expected to see coming into this. They have a stacked roster. We're not even actually seeing them play any of their new pickups. We haven't seen Edison. We haven't seen, the new support line with Kodak and Fire. So like there are all these like cool little pieces that Atlanta Reign can use, but we haven't really seen. So we did see Hawk come in on Sunday, and they did play the May McCree against Paris Eternal. Kind of pretty much wanted to match up against them, and they looked pretty disappointing. Baby Bay wasn't really given the space because of the aggression from Hanbin and FD God. So I think he sort of struggled to get the value that we saw from him in the first day. And then we had Hawk playing the Diva, his debut on the Overwatch League stage, and I think he really struggled. I think he didn't get the value, especially in comparison to Hanbin. His bombs were just going by the wayside, sort of ending up in Narnia a little bit. So it's kind of unfortunate that I think those sort of pieces didn't really come together, and then everything else just sort of didn't. No one really stood out on the Atlanta Reign team, which is surprising because that's a team that you expect a lot of people to stand out. So I think in this meta matchup, they really struggled. The only person that I would say really had a good game was Erster, and I talked about him before on Hanamura. I think he pretty much solo carried them through this map. So Erster is still as good as ever, but positive signs for Atlanta Reign. We are moving out of this May McCree sort of tunnel that we've been stuck in. We are in hero pools. We have Widow and McCree get taken out, so I would expect to see Baby Bay taken out of the lineup, because I would say those would be probably his two best characters that we would expect from him. So who are we going to see? They have a lot of great players on the bench in terms of the hit scan role, like Edison. So will we see Edison come in, play Tracer, play Hanzo? Will we see something completely different? Will we see Sombra? So I think, but Atlanta's a team that is no slouch and has no rough edges when it comes to the bench and weaknesses. I think if they're willing to switch in players off of their bench, then I think they'll be completely fine. So on Paris, there's a lot of question marks coming into hero pools, whether or not they're still going to be good. Atlanta, they had a lot of question marks playing this current meta, but now we're moving to hero pools, and I think they alleviates a lot of the questions that you have. So I think both of these teams are incredibly strong, and you need to keep an eye out for, because, when you look at the Atlanta Reign, they do have an incredibly stacked lineup. Edison, Erster, Gator, Hawk. Like, I still have a lot of respect for Hawk, even though he didn't play that well in his first match. They have 4 talented Western supports that can really sort of have shown up at different times throughout Overwatch. So I'm really looking to this Atlanta Reign team to sort of refocus throughout what happened against Paris and be like, okay, we know we're a great team, and come in with confidence, because if there's somewhere where Atlanta thrives, it's with confidence. So I'm really expecting them to sort of pull it back from that. I really want to sort of hit on just the amount of adaptability these guys are going to need in hero pools, and how important it's going to be to have the depth of roster. So Paris and Atlanta are two incredibly strong teams which have very different strengths. So I'm really excited to see like how both these teams go and like the directions they go, because at the end of the day, it could be anyone's game. So I hope you guys like me sort of breaking down how I think these two teams, what we learned from these two teams coming to this weekend. We are going into a new weekend. We do have hero pools. It's super excited. I'm super excited. You should be super excited, because we're going to see so much unique stuff coming from these teams. We're not just going to be watching the same thing week in, week out. So I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to tune in. I'm going to be doing these, breaking down at least something from each week. So peace out. I hope you have a good weekend and enjoy the matches.